Hey, and welcome to Affirming Adults. My name is Deb Pierce, and I'll be your host for the next 90 minutes. Today, I'd like to welcome parents, guardians, caregivers, families, and community members, and thank you all for being here today for this particularly important discussion. In the next hour and a half, we'll begin with a land acknowledgement, followed by a moment of silence. Then we'll meet our panelists, followed by discussions about what it is to be an affirming adult, how we can best put our efforts into daily practice, some lived experience examples of things that have worked and some things that may not have worked in the process. We're going to share resources and we'll wrap up with a Q&A with you, our viewers. We know this is going to be a motivational conversation. It's going to be, given the organic nature, somewhat triggering at times. So many feelings and thoughts may arise for you. And we want you to know that we've got some resources available that may be of comfort and support for you and folks that you know. Our moderator, Jack, will put that in the chat. So let's get started with our land acknowledgement. We wish to recognize the Indigenous nations on whose territory we are gathered today. The people of these nations have always been and will always be stewards of this land, and we thank them for the opportunity to be here today. EGAL stands firm in our solidarity with the Indigenous peoples and survivors of Canada's residential schools. To this end, we would like to take a moment of silence to acknowledge the heinous history, the lives taken, and the ongoing colonial violence and oppression endured by Indigenous peoples across Turtle Island. Let us have that moment now. Thank you. For those who may not know EGAL, the organization putting this on today, here is the mission statement. Also, the website, if you want to go to it at another time, is EGAL, EGALE.ca. Our mission statement is to improve the lives of 2S LGBTQI people in Canada and to enhance the global response to 2S LGBTQI issues. EGAL will achieve this by informing public policy, inspiring cultural change, and promoting human rights and inclusion through research, education, awareness like this, and legal advocacy. Again, my name is Deb Pierce. I use she, they pronouns, and I'm a communications and events officer here at EGAL. And today I'm going to be facilitating this panel on affirming adults. I just want to quickly highlight the Q&A and chat features. Feel free to ask questions throughout the next 90 minutes for sure. Just put them in the chat. If you want to talk to panelists directly, you can. If you want to talk to all attendees, you can ask those questions. Jack will be moderating and will do their best to answer those questions, or we'll save them till the end because we really want to value your questions because there's no bad or wrong questions. The CC, the closed captioning, has been enabled. If you want to turn it off, just simply click on it on the bottom right there, and you can disable that if you find it distracting when you're speaking and you might not need it. Again, today's moderator is Jack, and they'll be here to assist you. Are you ready to get going? So am I. All right. Our first panelist, in no particular order, although I think they did get on first. Liz Warwick is a parent to a transitioning 24-year-old. Let's bring Liz onto the screen right now, please. Hey. And you're muted, but you can unmute yourself. Liz, thank you so much for being here today.
My pleasure.
Next up, we have Dr. Andrew Campbell, also known as Dr. ABC, an educator, workshop facilitator, motivational speaker, storyteller, and author. Dr. Campbell, please join us. There you are. Thanks for being here today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, our pleasure. Last but not least, we have a student. His name is David Passoff. Let's welcome David to the stage. Welcome, everybody. So thank you very much for being here today. There was really no question when I was doing some research and outreach. It was really a pleasure for me to experience your very quick yeses. And so thank you. And on behalf of all the attendees right now, thanks very much for saying yes. And your lived experience over the next until 1:30, your lived experience, how you navigate these waters, how you are an affirming adult, how you've leaned on affirming adults, how you've led as a parent by being an affirming adult will be highly educational to all the folks watching. So thank you so much in advance for being here and lending your voice and lived experience. Okay, I got to go through my papers now because I can't just look on screen and I'm old school. All right, the first question I think, I just want to set something aside. So 2S LGBTQI is something that rolls off my tongue really quickly, really easily. It's what I do. It's what I live. I am a very proud member of the community. So I'm just going to break down what that means. So 2S, two-spirit. 2SL, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, intersex. Did I forget any of them? What I might do for the interest of time is I may refer to all of those communities as queer, respectfully, throughout the rest of this time. How you wish to address your communities is totally fine with you, but 2S LGBTQI is something that if you want to do a deeper dive, Jack has put the glossary of terms for EGAL awareness. So if you're just dipping your toes into these communities, if you're just wanting more information, if this is very new to you, don't worry. I always tell folks, it's like talking to somebody at a dinner party, having a great conversation for an hour and then going, oh my God, I forgot their name. It's not too late to learn 2S LGBTQI and all of its glory, all right? So thanks very much, Jack, for putting that in. So my first question to you, and we'll just continue in order of appearance, which was Liz, Dr. Campbell, and David. So what exactly, Liz, does it mean to be an affirming adult? For you, given the lived experience as a parent, can you share with us how you may have been exhibiting or showing that early on in your child's life, or how you live by example now?
Sure. I think we don't, when your child comes to you and says, I'm thinking about, transitioning, or I'm questioning my gender, my gender identity, my gender expression, that's just one moment. The affirming part of it has happened, since the day they were born. So in some senses, you're looking at your child and saying, have I, as a parent, tried to affirm who this person is, supporting them. And for me, it was really important about, particularly in this North American culture where children often are seen as kind of representatives of our good parenting. We're so proud of them. They got into a good school. They, got this great job and all this good stuff. Yay me. But when your child is struggling, for example, with for example, with mental illness, or, so anxiety or depression, then it's like, okay, can we affirm them? And that's a funny word to use, but in some sense, we affirm them in all of who they are, in the difficulties and in the struggle and in all of that. So in trying to, because my daughter struggled with anxiety and struggled with other issues, and being there and trying to help them, and being honest when I was unsuccessful, when I didn't do what I was hoping to do. I think being able to apologize to your child, to say, I goofed, I didn't do it right, let's try again, but also to just be open and curious about their lives, so that when you get to this transition, those questions that you're going to ask are, tell me more. Oh, I didn't know that. Yes, I had this question, and I'll be honest, did I miss something? Because they've been transitioning as an adult, as someone who's 24, and so I had to ask that very honest question. Was like, did I just totally miss something? And no, there wasn't words to talk about this. So we've had these conversations, and being able to really engage and keep that conversation going. But it's a conversation that's been happening over 24 years. So I think that that's really important. And also to have that as an affirming adult, to also create your own space where you are learning. So I don't expect my child to educate me on 2S LGBTQI. I'm still working a little on that issues. I do some of my own work, and I need to do my own work, and I do that, and I'm processing my own feelings and my own thoughts. So there are boundaries, but I do think affirmation is just something that we do throughout their lives.
You know, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because in our pre-interview chat, Liz, and I'll get to you, Dr. Campbell, in just one second. In our pre-interview, you said something very curious to me, and it has resonated and stuck with me. You said, I don't think it's my daughter's job to educate me on this. These are the things that I am learning for myself, so that I can come to the table with that knowledge, which I think is great. And for parents out there and guardians and anybody in a trusted affirming adult role, I think that's a really big takeaway, Liz. Thank you very much. Dr. Andrew Campbell, same question to you. What does it mean to be affirming? What are some key characteristics of being an affirming adult for you?
Thank you so much. Something that you said, Liz, that really resonated with me before I even get into my answer is you said it's something you have been doing all your life. You believe it's something that happens at every point. And I listen to that and I smile, because that is absolutely what it's supposed to be. However, the truth is there are many people, especially LGBTQ folks, who have not gotten that kind of affirmation, right? And I grew up in a space like many of us, not just in, when I say these things, people think, wow, it's Jamaica, but no, it's happening right here in Canada, right here in Toronto, where parents or teachers and guardians are only affirming certain parts of our students, and then the other parts are totally ignored. And so, whenever I have this conversation, and as I'm an immigrant from Jamaica, people like, we tend to rush to that kind of developing country kind of notion, like, whoa, we're so behind. Well, the truth, it's right here. I know tons of people right here who's lacking that affirmation, lacking that space that says, hey, you can be who you want to be, even at 24 or 10 or 6 or whatever. It's funny enough, I was have a conversation with a group the other day where someone said, a child came home to say at 6 that they want to they don't feel like who they want to be somebody else. And there was a very, very intense discussion about, does she know what she wants? And I could tell you, this is all in Canada, and it's very split in the discussion, because there are parents who are saying, well, you don't, because what I'm going to affirm is the little boy that I have. And then other people are saying, well, no, let's affirm the little girl that she's becoming. And so I want to lay that foundation there, that we shouldn't think that affirmation is so matter of fact. But I love that you made it so matter of fact, Liz, because that's the way it should be. As I want to leave that there. And so for me, affirmation, with that groundwork, affirmation is about belonging. Is exactly what you said. It's about belonging, and belonging on all levels. Belonging on all levels. That I am okay to be me. I'm okay to say this. I'm okay to wear this. I'm okay. I don't have to police myself to what I'm going to wear, what I'm not going to wear. And I still want to go back to my context, because when we have these discussions and the spaces are very wide, we forget the different, spaces. And for me, I just came back from Jamaica, and I live my best life when I go to Jamaica, but I navigate Jamaica quite well. And the other days, a couple who was in another country, Black gay couple, asked me about going to Jamaica, and I discouraged them. And I know many people are surprised. And I say to them, yes, you can go. But I said, you have to have the navigating tools to live the life you see me living. Quote unquote, I'm living my best hot boy summer. I was living my best hot boy summer. But that takes some navigation. That takes me looking at all the clothes I have to take to Jamaica and wonder, is this shorts too short? Is this robe too dramatic? Can I wear this at the poolside? Will it cost attention? Will it cost whatever? So I do navigate it, and it looks good. But because I've already able to create that space of belonging for myself. Now, as affirming adults, and I love this term, by the way, do we know to create that space of belonging for our children and our students? That when they go to certain spaces, they don't have the pressure of navigating, because we've already created the space of belonging. And so for me, it's about creating that belonging. It's about, I'm going to bring in something very important. It's about, and I want to go back to that later on, it's about creating that safer space. I use the word safer, not safe, safer to what? But most of all, creating that brave space. And if you ask me what I've been, I'll tell you I've been brave. I was at the University of Toronto. I work at the University of Toronto, and I was doing tons of workshops in the last couple of years. And I've said to people, including my dean is in the room, and I said, there are many days I walk into Toronto, in University of Toronto, where I know it's not safe. But I walk out of the elevator because I'm brave. So I've been brave, not because you have created a safe space, because I could give you tons of unsafe stories, but I walk out being brave. So we want us to make sure we affirm our students, we affirm our children, affirm our friends, affirm our gay and lesbian couples and trans people that we know, so they can be braver and so they can be safer. And the last thing I'll say in all of that, it is about relationship and trust. So if you forget everything I just said about Hot Boy Summer, don't forget relationships and trust. Because I see a lot of people trying to be allies and they're trying to be advocates and activists. And right now it's the hot topic. But then they lack relationships. You know, Deb could call on me to ask me, because we have developed, or we are developing relationship. I'm not a stranger to Deb. I've stood beside Deb before at LGBTQ event. I've watched Deb on show performing, and I live my best life watching, you know, your performances. I've seen Deb out on, you know, on Facebook, and we communicate. We have not get to hug and kiss and do all the other stuff yet because lockdown has just been ridiculous. But that's a relationship. So I think Deb had the permission to call on me, because we are developing, and that is what is lacking. We need to develop relationships so we can build trust, so we can be more affirming. I'll leave it at that for now.
Thank you, Dr. Campbell. Thank you very much. Few things I can't get visuals out of my head of your Hot Boy Summer. Secondly, I've never seen you on social media in the same outfit twice. I don't know, you're Imelda Marcos closet. I have no idea, it's ginormous. And one thing I want to circle back to a little bit later on, because it's come up in my personal life twice in 4 weeks, where I've had two parents reaching out to me. They have been leading with love, doing what Liz and as a parent has done, perhaps what David will share with us about their lived experience, understanding what an affirming adult is for their coming out process. But the parents have been fine leading with love, and it's the children that have their internalized phobias. And there's been two very important physical events for these two youth, because it wasn't as consequential if the parents were affirming, it was how they were feeling, right? So it is that laying the groundwork, but it's also ensuring that that mental health is looked after and checked in on for them. We can be okay with it, but is our child okay with their own identity, right? So that was something that sort of was no coincidence coming up in my personal life in the last 4 weeks. David, we want to hear the dulcet tones of your delicious voice, and I appreciate that you're wearing the same shirt. David takes outfit requests, and I asked for this shirt, so thank you very much, David.
This shirt has caused so much drama between myself and my partner, because he wanted to steal it, and I refused to let him because I was wearing it today.
Yay, I'm so glad you did. I'm so glad you remembered. So David, I'm going to flip it just a little bit. Because there's no doubt for me that you are an affirming adult leading by love and example. But I suppose the question may be phrased to you, and take it how you wish. But perhaps as somebody with that lived experience, how did you know that somebody was an affirming adult? How did you know there was a safer, and I love that, Andrew, I lead with that as well, safer. There's no safe space. There's safer spaces. So how do you hear that question? Feel free to take it with whatever life that you choose to give it, David.
I would say that I'm first of all unbelievably fortunate to have grown up in a very, very safe environment, surrounded by many, many different affirming adults in my life in many capacities, from my parents to my coaches. When I was young, that's really all I had was my parents and my coaches and my family. But as you said, and you said I might touch on this, and oh, can I touch on internalized phobias and poor mental health? Uh, that when I was figuring out my identity, it was back in 2013, 2012, when I was in middle school, which is when I was beginning to figure things out. At the time, calling somebody gay in the locker room was still an insult. So I grew up from the age of 12 to 15 when I came out, um, terrified of who I was. Whether or not I knew that I'd be accepted by my family, as my cousin had been bringing his boyfriend to our family dinners every other week. So it wasn't an issue of, does anybody care that I'm gay? But it was, well, do I care that I'm gay? And of course I did, because nobody wants to grow up saying, I'm different, I'm going to stick out. My family will like me, but will my friends like me? Will I have issues growing up, et cetera, et cetera. I am Jewish. I have gone to Jewish private school since the age of 2, up until I graduated grade 12. And there had been situations of teachers in my middle school who had made some comments that were less than acceptable. And one of those was a teacher of mine who, I heard about this, and it's an awful experience to grow up being mindful of every motion that you make. Of, am I walking too gay? Am I talking too gay? I know there's the whole joke now of the are they, but it's the idea of, am I being too flowy in my motions? I talk with my hands, but some people might look at that and say that's a very, stereotypically more feminine thing to do, that I got the wrists going. And when I was younger, that was always something that I was absolutely terrified of doing at school, around these teachers who I didn't know if they were affirming or not. And I think that what Andrew said about affirming being equated with belonging, I think is unbelievably accurate, in the fact that I grew up saying that I had 2 families. Was a competitive horseback rider when I was younger, so I had my barn family and I have my actual family. Um, and uh, One of my closest friends from horseback riding when I was younger was the first person I ever came out to. She's 4, 5, something like that. I don't do math. She's, a couple years older than me, and I always looked up to her. So to me, she was an affirming adult to me. And I always knew that I was safe with her. I could always go talk to her. She was always welcoming. We had a very good rapport. And that it was an atmosphere that I knew that I belonged in, which allowed me, when I felt the time was right, and after I was able to get over my fears, because the issue was never outside of me, it was always within me. But I ripped the band-aid off, so to speak, and I started, and once I got the ball rolling, I was able to, slowly push myself up that hill once I got the momentum. But it was thanks to the warm embrace of those around me that said, we don't care who you are as long as you're happy. And it was never, I said, I am Jewish. I come from a very traditional Jewish matriarch household of a very anxious Jewish mother. I'm sure we've all seen the image of that. And when I came up, my mother was worried, not because she cared that I was gay, but because she wanted to make sure that people treated me well, and that I didn't go through life with the hardships that when she grew up, she saw a lot of queer people going through. Um, and speaking to what Liz said about continuing learning, um, I've seen firsthand. I've watched her become an increasingly affirming adult as she's gone through my coming out journey, and then a year later, my brother's coming out journey, as she has 2 gay sons. Great time in this household, lots of Drag Race. Um, uh, but she, has made an effort to try to educate herself, and things that, she doesn't know about, or, she's not sure about. She will ask questions. A friend of mine very recently came out as non-binary. And my brother and I, took the time, and we sat down with my parents, and we discussed with them exactly, what that means, how to address them. It's important, I will say, to be, the last thing I'll say, because I see Deb continuously unmuting herself to probably tell me to stop talking, is that both as, like, it's unbelievably important to be an affirming, to have those affirming adults in your life, but as the child, it's important to be an affirming child and to know that, most parents do not come from the same time that we do, and that they're learning to be the parent of a queer child as much as we are learning to be a queer child, and that we need to be there to support them in their learning and their growth as much as they want to be there for ours.
Beautiful, David. Thank you very much. There's so many visuals of your home, and I'll just share with folks that are watching, when David and I did our pre-interview, your mom actually did that door over your right shoulder. It was very sweet that she came, and she's been invited, but she's busy today, but would be here if she could, and who knows what her schedule is going to permit. So on the topic, of course, of affirming adults, now, once somebody has chosen to disclose that personal aspect of themselves, how can we ensure that they know that they're safe in that the knowledge that you have about that personal part of them is going to be still in their full control for their own disclosure at the time that they want? Liz, I'll start with you. You can get as personal as you want. It can be a cursory level, however you wish to share. That would be great, because people are going to learn by that example.
Sure. So I feel like I'm actually kind of in the thick of this right now, because my daughter isn't sort of out and has not spoken to a wide circle of people. So I'm very, very careful. And but we have conversations, and I just want to come back to David, what you said about, we're learning. So children are, teaching their parents, and parents are learning from their kids. It's so important, because I'm just blown away by, both my two daughters, about just how aware and thoughtful and amazing you are. Amazing, just so much wisdom. So really taking my cues, asking questions before I participate in this panel. Sat down with her and said, I've been asked what, if it's a no-go for you, it's a no-go. I'm not here to tell your story. That's yours. I'm here to tell my own journey. And what are some of the parameters? So we talk about that. In family gatherings, and especially on Zoom, I finally just, after one Zoom call, I just said, look, I cannot refer to you as, hey, you up in the corner. It's like, we need to have a discussion about what do we do in this family situation when not everybody is aware. So it's just it's a dialogue. And, when I'm out, it's I often go back to using they, them, just when I'm with people who I really, people on the street, people ask a lot about your children. So it's just a process. It's that taking not just cues, but asking directly, what and of course, if they were much younger, kids are really good at this. So I think that's what you do, is that you ask, and then you try and be aware. Does it sometimes lead to a little bit of kind of convoluted or slowing down? I'm a fast talker, and I also talk with my hands. So sometimes I just have to go, I can just slow down. So I'm not saying anything that, I'm not revealing anything that I shouldn't be. Slow it down, and that's okay. And being willing to, as I keep coming back to this, if I've made a mistake somewhere along the way, own up to it. Sorry, let's keep trying. Let's keep moving forward.
Beautiful, perfect, thank you. And Dr. Campbell, I'm sure some folks have come out to you on a plethora of levels in your work at U of T and personally. So what can we do and say to folks so we know that we are that safe or affirming space, and that personal information will be kept just that?
But it's what you said, Liz. It's trust, right? It's about building that trust again. But also knowing, and this is very, very important, because I'm listening to you, and you said people ask you a question, and knowing what not to share, and also feeling okay not sharing. Because sometimes I find when people ask questions about other people, so I have a two balance. Some people have come to me to ask about somebody else, and I will literally say, you should ask them. Or if I have permission, I'll say, and I will preface by saying, I have permission to share, he or she or whatever is that. And then sometimes I don't. I would say, why do you want to know? Because sometimes you can sense the only reason it's gossip, or it's being inquisitive. And I don't feed gossip, and I don't feed your thirst for being inquisitive. And I've had that in my personal circle when somebody asked me about a transgender friend that I had. And I said, well, you shouldn't be asking those questions. And the person was like, but we're friends. I said, you should not be asking those questions, because the rationale for asking was just being not curious, but inquisitive. Because now you see somebody and the person looks almost like strange, whatever word you want to use, and you're just trying to dig who that person is. It's fascination. And then my job is not to feed your fascination. And so I want to lay that foundation. We have to learn that it's okay to say, no, I don't know, or ask a person. But also when it comes to people confiding in you, you remember that people build confidence in you because they find that you're ethical, you're honest, you're trustworthy. And when I don't have permission to share, I'm not going to share. And another thing I want to say, especially because it's happening, especially even to you, Liz, it's okay not to know. It's okay not to know what the L means. It's okay not to know what the I means. It's okay not to know what the 2S is. This is something that I'm very strong about when I do workshop, because I feel like there are people who are so aggressive and they want you to know everything now. And you're not going to know everything now. You are not going to understand the entire thing now. What it means to be femme and to be butch queen. And there's so much things coming up. I guarantee, Liz, you don't even hear some of them yet. And so you don't need to be in a hurry to know everything. I think that's a problem. And I think it comes from us also as LGBTQ folks, that we feel like everybody needs to respect us so much that we need to know everything. And I've said to people, give people time to deal with it. When I came out to my mom, and people were surprised when I said the process I use and the time I gave my mother. I said, because she needs time to understand she's not going to get no grandkids that she wants, because I know what she wanted. So she's like, needs time to mourn through all of that. If I supposed to keep a wedding, it was going to be the best wedding ever, because I'm that person. She needs to know that's not going to happen anytime soon. And if it's going to be a wedding, it's going to be a guy. Now, how do you deal with that? Because my mother's Christian and she's Pentecostal and she's from the Black old church. You have to give people time to do that. So it's different level, but in all of that, it's still love, right? And so for me, I believe that disclosure comes with trust and giving people time to disclose to you and in their own way. I give an example. I had somebody I've been around for a while, and I've always used the word she and her. And they made a public pronouncement on social media using new pronouns as they and them. And I smiled because in the pronouncement, they said, and don't ask when and how. Because I know that people are going to say, well, when did you move from she to them? And how does this happen? And for me, I smile because I really don't care. I just know that they said, as of now, I am they. And my job is, as of now, to say they. And when you meet people who are trying to fight with those kind of stuff, I will ask them, what is your fight? If somebody says to you, I am they, just call them they. If somebody get up and said, I'm a chef, what am I going to say? You're not a chef. You're a plumber. You're a chef. I'm going to say, okay, chef, give me some food. How dare you tell me I'm not a chef, I'm a plumber? You know what I'm saying? And so we have to be careful. What are the rationale behind why we need certain information? And all of us have been there, like including myself. Now I'm at the place where I realize I don't need it. If you say to me, you are there, then amen, you are there. And I'm going to work with you being there. I don't need to know the story, but I'm going to be very happy when you and I develop a relationship and you can tell me all about how you went from she to they or her to they. And now I'm happy because I'm privileged that you trust me enough to share. But until then, it's okay. So that
it really is about safety and trust. And that really is when you set that safety and trust, when you lead with that as an example, as a professor, as a friend, as an ally, working in allyship, you really do create that open space to be an affirming adult. So many things came up every time one of you speaks. And one of the things is that you're going to be hearing to the attendees, you're going to be hearing some words like non-binary. You're going to be hearing me introduce myself that my preferred pronouns are she and they. You're going to maybe hear BIPOC, which is Black, Indigenous, People of Color. So there's a number, folks love acronyms. I mean, we really do. 2S LGBTQI, BIPOC, all those things. So again, we're putting some resources in the chat there for you afterwards. This is being recorded, so we will be putting it on agal.ca. So for those of you who are living in this moment, we will have this accessible to you at the end. But that's great. Those are some great life lessons. And I love how you're just like, yes, and you are, and that's fine. And if you make that mistake, before I get to you, David, if you make a mistake and you misgender or you mispronoun, I'll tell you that some of the things that we do in our AGAL webinars is it's okay to err is human. If your intention is leading with love and you're like, oh my gosh, Liz, I'm so sorry I misgendered you. I'll try my best not to let that happen again. That's fine. That's what these folks want to hear, is that you made a mistake and that's okay, because it does take a little bit of getting used to. You know, I've talked to a dad that was on the wings of Gay Day at Wonderland that I used to MC, and kept referring to their trans son by their dead name, is what we call it, or their birth name, and kept saying, it's just so hard for me. And I was like, no, it really shouldn't be, because there was that mental block of, I'm going to say it's hard, so it is hard. And I said, you know what's hard? The fact that your child may self-harm because you're not getting on board. So why don't you fake it till you make it? Call them by their pronoun that they want right now. Call them by the name that they want to be assigned, and just fake it, like just the repetition of it. It's not hard. It's not hard. You're making it hard. Okay, David, where was I? Where are we? So I suppose, how do you feel about when you're, or maybe, you know what, in your lived experience, maybe folks have come out to you. So you can personally answer it, and you can answer how maybe you've been an affirming safer space for somebody else to come out to. How did they know that that secret is safe with you?
I have been on both ends of the spectrum, coming out to people and having people come out to me. I think as somebody with a somewhat severe anxiety disorder, trust for me is a very fickle thing. And it's one of the things that I recognize, that sometimes you meet somebody and you just know you can trust them. And sometimes, you know, when you don't know somebody well and you think they might give off, you know, that a trustworthy vibe, you got to get to know them. You know, that's always at an individual's discretion. You know, I have met people who, I first met them, I said, you know, you seem nice. We're going to give it a minute. We're going to see where we stand. And then, you know, then I might start talking about my boyfriend or whatever the situation might be. And then I have people who, you know, I met, and the second I met them, and I was like, okay, we need to talk about something. But you know, my very close friend who recently came out as non-binary, I'm the director of a charity, and they're one of my co-directors, and we always started a meeting with something called, now I'm blanking on the name, access needs, there we go, which is, we start our meetings with, you know, here's an access need, this is just what I need today to be successful, or like, this is the support that I need today, whatever it may be. So sometimes, you know, because I'm mental health, I have some very crappy days where I just say, hey, I'm just letting you guys know my access need, I'm going to be quiet. I'm probably going to be pretty quiet today. Like, I'm going to speak when I need to, not more than that. You know, my access need is I need to lie in bed today. My access need is that I need to be eating during this meeting, whatever it may be. So in our access needs at the beginning, they said, hey guys, I'm just letting you know this. I've decided that I'm now going by she, they pronouns. And we all said, great. They said that they're not ready to put it as their, you know, in their Zoom name. When we do all of our events, we always do pronouns for those who are comfortable. They said, I'm going to do she, her for now, but like, you know, just so you all know, we said, whatever makes you feel comfortable. They were ready. They started doing it. We said, great, there it is. it's about, I think trust is always about showing somebody over time that, it's the little things of, they tell you something and you don't go telling it to everybody, or you sit there, and if they need to vent to you or they need to have a conversation, you sit and you give them the attention and the support that they need, and that's how you build trust over time. And sometimes you find those people that you click with, and you know it's phenomenal, and sometimes you find those people that you know you've known for whatever 7-10 years of your life, and sometimes the trust, there's a threshold that you got to meet, and sometimes it just doesn't make it there. And as long as the individual feels comfortable, that's always what matters most. And as somebody who does, for a 21-year-old, a fair bit of work with those who suffer with mental illness, as well as members of the 2S LGBTQI community. I gotta get used to the new acronym. um, it's always it's building, as Andrew said, about building that brave space, and making sure people recognize the fact that you share what you want to share. There's not a burden of you must say X, Y, Z. It's always share your pronouns if you feel comfortable. It's do you want to talk about this? No, great, we're not talking about it. As Dr. Campbell said, don't ask how, don't ask when, just go with it. It's if this is the situation, then whatever the situation is what the situation is. There's no reason, unless it affects your life in like an important way for whatever reason, it doesn't matter. It's it's their life, they can do with it what they want. So long as they're not endangering, they're not endangering others, then that's that's what it comes down to.
Thank you, David. All right, I just want to take a moment because we're at about the halfway mark, and I want to let the attendees know that we want to hear from you. We can hear from you now, we can hear from you after. If there's a burning question, if there's something that you feel like you want us to do a deeper dive on, I know this panel is more than willing to do so. So please, we want to hear from you. Again, if you know how to do it in the chat, you can just do 2, and you can do it to any one of us individually. You can do it to all panelists and attendees. And again, we're at about the halfway mark. In 30 minutes, we will be taking those questions. So thank you for this. So I would be remiss if I didn't cover COVID-19, of course. So as we are coming back to, and Ontario just released this week that there will be back to school in person, in class learning. Now, little backstory before I go through the cycle again. I was honored to be a camp counselor at Camp Rainbow Phoenix 2 weeks ago as an online camp counselor. I was looking after a cabin. So overwhelmingly, 100% of the folks in there, 14 to 16 years of age, were, I'm not exaggerating when I say terrified of going back into the in-classroom learning environment and being bullied by, their words, not mine, straight males. That is their biggest obstacle, fear, trepidation, worry, reason to maybe stay online as opposed to in person. So the classroom bullying, the recess bullying, all of those things that are not permissive, but they happen in person, also happen online. So my question to you in a roundabout way is, what comes and, the struggles of going back to in-person, in-class learning as the world starts to quote unquote open up. Liz, how do you see this as being a hindrance or a help? Maybe, I don't know.
So I don't have children who are now in sort of the elementary and high school ages, but they were in a different time. And so my sense is that those issues of bullying have been, particularly for 2S LGBTQI students, they've just been around for so long. And we need to continue to work with and fight for those braver spaces for our children, spaces where if they are struggling, they can get help. And I know so my children were educated in Quebec, and that the mental health resources they just weren't there at school, elsewhere, that it was just so incredibly frustrating having gone through that. So yeah, I don't have any big answers. I see that there have been positive sides to people being online, and I'll say this more as, so my daughter, through a Discord chat, has been found a group of transgender women who are really supportive. They're now starting to meet in person, so it's kind of exciting. So they're doing this kind of blended, they're going outside to a park, and that was really important for her. It was like, it's great to be online, but we really need that in person. So there are both of those, and I don't know. I think I'll turn it over to others who are working more directly in the schools, but I just think that we need to keep pushing forward, because it's still, I'm sorry, David, I know you mentioned, that, oh, you're so gay, it's still an insult. It's still happening. I'm sorry, it's still out there. It's still being said. So, just that very simple thing, we got work to do.
Absolutely. And when we talk about, and I know that right, your daughter's 24, so they've sort of morphed out of that 14 to 21, not to say that it doesn't happen in post-secondary education as well. But I'm also thinking about folks that found a safer space at school than they did, and they didn't have that anymore, or it's unsafe, or they were coming out and now that process has been thwarted, or they were transitioning and that process may have been halted, during this time of COVID, and surgeries are postponed and all that stuff. So Dr. Campbell, let's just, sort of the umbrella term of COVID-19, help or hindrance. What are some of the things that you think that we should be thinking about as affirming adults to kind of come in with gentle hands?
It's funny you said gentle hands there. The funny is I just catch it as you was closing. Gentle hands. It's a lot. So COVID has interrupted. Let's just make sure we know that. There are many schools that COVID have just interrupted everything. Remember, there are students, and I want to set that framework, that there are students who have not danced for over a year. They have not run, they have not played with each other, they have not done the drama club, the things that was facilitating their growth. And it happened to everybody, but also because of the situation our LGBTQ students are in, it happened to them as well. So the GSAs stops, and a lot of stuff stopped. A safe space is a dance class. Tons of students will tell you that's where they could go to be themselves. There was no dance class. So they were lacking that. And teachers can do so much. So some teachers try to do, I've been guest speaker in schools, and I must say elementary school in Peel, where they had a GSA. I had no idea that elementary school, and they had their Pride event online. Lots of students logged on, lots of parents, but that's one teacher in a million. So we have to go back to the place where we are going back to resetting, restarting, reigniting, reframing, replanning. It's a do-over. And so for me, I am ready as an educator. I am ready to go back to continue the work, or to start the work, or to restart the work. That's just the reality. And I think as educators, if you're any educators listening to me, you have to remember we have to just go back in it and start again. And because students have missed out on so many things. And there's a little thing you said that I have to go back to, is that we have to also remember that many people, including LGBTQ students, thrived during this time. This was their best time. Let's be honest about that. As much as COVID is a disaster, there are students that this were their best time ever. They got to learn, they got to interact with their teachers, they could talk to teachers in breakout rooms, they could get, and I substitute, so I know what's going on out there. This was their best time. They didn't have to battle with the playground bully, all of this bullying online, but it was less. They could just turn off their camera and not be bothered. They could go into a different breakout room and not be bothered. They could escape and not have to show up all the time. So that's another consideration. And for me, I hope the government, because I've been thinking about that a lot, because I've been teaching online for 12 years. So I know the beauty of online before people are discovering, okay, we actually could do this. How do we create space for those students who are having those kind of spaces and they're surviving? So it's a lot going on, but it's a lot of relearning needs to happen, a lot of relearning and a lot of restarting. And we have to be ready to restart because we need to make sure we are creating those spaces. But last thing I'll say is advocacy didn't stop. Advocacy did not stop. And those persons who are advocates, they have been doing it. I have attended so many events and so many stuff that is going on. I mean, let's use this as an example. Eagle could say, well, people are tired of online. They don't want to be here. Let's just wait until we go back. We have this conversation. But what would happen with those attendants today? And let me just say this. I am never moved, and I'm used to talking in front of hundreds, thousands of people. But one of my things that I'm committed to, if 4 persons turn up, you're going to get the best of me. So the persons who are listening today, you're getting the best of me. I'm not talking like this. And I have nothing more to share if there were 5,000 of you today. Because I'm conscious that this is being recorded and somebody will stumble on this and use it. I guarantee you, Liz, the little things you said today, I guarantee you what you said, David, someone is going to stumble on this video a month, 3 months, 4 months from now. And I'm going to close by saying some teacher is going to stumble upon this and use it in their classroom, I guarantee. And so this, what you're doing, this, what we are doing is important, even online. So advocacy has not stopped. Let's continue to do what we're doing so we can reaffirm and affirm and introduce new students who need this kind of affirmation in the space.
That's beautiful. I knew you were going to take us to church in that moment because you took your glasses off. And I was like, Dr. ABC is taking us to a place right now. And I thank you for that. And they're back on. Thank you very much. Before we go into one of our final questions here, which is how we continue to sort of promote this, right? So whether it's in classroom or David, potentially maybe a closing for your pronoun and emails. We do have a question, which I'll get to. I'm just going to ask Jack as our moderator to get a little bit more detail about this particular question. The wording, I don't want to misphrase this question from one of our valued viewers. So David, quickly, so how would you sort of answer what we've been talking about the last couple of minutes for yourself?
First of all, I love what Dr. Campbell said, that advocacy did not stop. I'm a member of an organization, which is an international Jewish organization called Hillel International, which runs Jewish programming for high schools and youth groups and whatnot across the world. I go to the University of Guelph, so I'm part of the executive team for that chapter, and my title is technically VP of Rainbow Jews. It's a horrible name. I don't want to get into it.
I mean, is it though, or is it just great? Is it kind of great?
I hate it with I'll try for a very quick aside. There's an international organization called Keshet. Keshet is the Hebrew word for rainbow. And that's an Israeli 2S LGBTQI advocacy group for Jews across the world, which is an amazing organization. And I love what they do. Obviously, like, that was the first name that was pitched for Hillel of using that. And then they said, we can't, it's copywritten. So they went with the next best thing and they just put it in English. It just doesn't have the same ring to it as Keshet, but I digress. When COVID hit, I still had to, run the programming I was running for Hillel online. We just took it and we said, great, it's going to be online now. And as much as I love how much more reach the online community has brought us, as Liz said, that her daughter had found an amazing group on Discord. I have made an unbelievable amount of new friends from across the world over just since January through Discord, which never would have happened if it wasn't for COVID. I met my boyfriend that way.
Ooh, I had to unmute myself for that one, sorry.
Of course. Um, and now it's just a matter of, it's finding the new normal of, you know, our events now are probably gonna have to be balanced between, a combination of online and in person. And, can we integrate both to widen the reach and things like that? You know, back before COVID started, I pride myself on, we ran a lot of very interactive in-person events that were much like, they felt very warm because it was, 15 people sitting on couches in, the house that Hillel rents for us, just, relaxing, having snacks, and having a very in-depth discussion, which is hard to not, it's not always easy to find, that warm atmosphere through Zoom. That's the reality of it. So now it's a matter of, um, you know, trying to still balance the reach that we get from these online events that we now have from COVID, and going back to this new advocacy that we can get from these, more personal, warmer environments that I personally am very excited to go back to, because, I miss being able to run events that aren't just, hey, we're going to play games online with a bunch of queer people, which is, a lot of fun, but it's not the same. It creates an enjoyable atmosphere, but it doesn't necessarily create the same warm atmosphere that we want to bring, queer and oftentimes questioning individuals into.
Yeah, there is something about the energy exchange of somebody physically being in front of you. And yet sort of the ups and downs, the pros and cons. I am chatting with folks for free, essentially with my internet from around the world now. And so there are those pluses and minuses. I just want to let you know before they go, Kay Ripa, I don't know if Kelly's watching us or not. They had to go for an appointment. And Zakaya says, love what I'm hearing. Thank you to all the panelists. So we're having a good chat here on the side, and we do have a question from somebody. I'll get to that right at the end. And so I just want to go back to, again, one of the acronyms was GSA that Dr. Campbell spoke of. That is a Gay Straight Alliance. Jack has been putting some things in the chat there. So if you're a student and you're watching this and you're heading into high school, maybe you want to see about a GSA, start a GSA, inquire about a GSA from, again, an affirming adult, or maybe somebody that is a member of the community that you belong to. And so finally, before we kind of get to the Q&A, I don't want folks, we've had 3 folks drop off, so I realize that I don't want to lose people before the meat and potatoes of this is done. So when you're looking for this, I'll tell you, I've got a 9.5-year-old child, and because he has a rainbow family, I didn't assume that the public school system was going to have certain things in place. I didn't even expect that his daycare would. So I provided Mummy Mama and Me. Heather has 2 mummies. I provided the books for his daycare to read to all the children. I provided the books to the library of he's in his 6th year now because of senior kindergarten, junior kindergarten. And instead of assuming that there would be things in place, I infiltrated from within by being part of the parent council. So if I wanted to affect change and lead with love and talk about a rainbow family, I needed them to know that we existed, right? And so I'll tell you that in my parent council, we've gone from some of the staff members there being sort of visibly uncomfortable with the conversations to now using rainbow flags as their background, to talking to me directly with love, and also to all the other parents working in allyship. So I guess we can sort of close it out before we do the Q&A, and I suspect we might end a little bit early because I don't want folks to leave. When you're looking for something, Liz, Dr. Campbell, David, when you're looking for that yourself, when you're trying to signal affirmation, what are the things that folks can be looking for in structures, in families? Liz, I know that this is very insular to your family, although you are sort of part of groups too. So maybe with that answer is not necessarily looking for a poster, but some resources that you found useful. And we'll go through the 3 of you, and then we'll get to any questions. Please don't be shy in the attendees to ask us questions.
Sure. So, because this is still pretty new, and I'm a fairly private person. I'm being on the panel, but I'm pretty quiet and private. So, I wasn't looking necessarily for a flag or a T-shirt or anything like that. But I do like to read. I'm that's kind of my main way I get information. I went to I discovered my background is feminist and kind of, I would say, I think second wave feminist because of my age. So Our Bodies Ourselves was a huge influence on me, and I discovered just through some reading that they've taken that and created Trans Bodies, Trans Selves, which is a very large book, but in that same spirit of we look across the lifespan and talk to all kinds of people, and no flashy photos, really kind of looks like people have sent their own photos. It's kind of, but it was just a great book for me. Very helpful to look at and think about and questions. I did ask my daughter for some resources that she had found helpful in explaining, and she sent me a few. I can certainly put those into the chat at some point. So those were, I think that and I'm trying to, and Igal, look, I think that the work that Igal's doing is so important. If you can send people to a place, for example, that will explain pronouns and just say, here are the different pronouns, go have a look. So, if family members who have some questions, a very quick summary so that they can begin their education. So it's just about, for me, it's about for myself and educating myself, but as well, when people come with questions that I can say to them, well, why don't you go and take a look at this and talk to, talk to my daughter, ask, if you feel comfortable, ask them some questions. If they don't want or she doesn't want to respond, that's, I hope, Dr. Campbell, I love what you said about sometimes just have to say, no, I'm not, no is a complete sentence. No is fine. We can say no. So that would be those are the supports that I've found helpful.
Thank you. Please type those, please type those resources in the chat, and then folks can have them. And I think the chat stays with the recording. I hope so anyway. We do have a few questions coming in, which is great. So Dr. Campbell, how would you answer that question about how you signal that affirming adult? What do people look for? And what are some resources that you found helpful or that you've guided folks to check out?
I'm going to do the same thing what Liz says. It's about, okay, so what we don't want to do is to pressure the people who identify with all the answers. And I'm sure you know that. We went through the Black Lives Matter, the George Floyd, and everybody keeps saying, stop asking Black people to teach you about racism. Go learn yourself, go learn yourself. I do the same thing with people, but my approach is different. I say to people, how powerful it is for you to learn. And I do a lot of workshops. And what I do is I show them, and many times they already picked it up. As I said to them, as much as I do panels, as much as I do workshops, much as I do keynotes, I sit, fold my arms, drink my tea or whatever I'm sipping, and listen to as much. So as much as I'm pouring out information is as much as I'm gaining. So I say to people, I become an expert, so to speak, or I become more culturally aware. I become more learned because I go about my learning. Let me give you an example. The other day when I have done courses in First Nation studies, and the other day when the number 215 hit us all, how did you respond? Did you respond by saying, oh, let me go find my Indigenous friend to tell me everything? Because people did that. And you kept seeing the emails going out asking, is there somebody Indigenous that could tell me? I said, no, you go Google 215 yourself. You know what I did? I started, and I'm quite qualified in certain areas because I did 2 courses in it, but I started watching YouTube videos. And I watch YouTube videos that are created by Indigenous folks. So instead of calling the person, I started watching. I have on my bookshelf Indigenous authors that I bought their books so I could learn. You know what I'm saying? So it's the same thing for us as LGBTQ folks. Who are you talking to? I have on my book right in front of me, because I'm looking like that. My bookshelf is in front of me. I have maybe more than 11 books on my shelf right now, all about LGBT and education, because I want to learn more. I want to understand more. So I would say to people who are listening, invest in your learning. Invest in your own learning. Invest in your own unlearning. And yet, I didn't say you have to join a book club. I didn't say you have to buy books, but you can do YouTube videos. You could turn up to more EGAL activities. They are free, at what I gather. Go learn, go listen. You know, that's what I'm talking about. You know, two of your friends right now who said something stupid the other day, send them a copy of this video. Let them sit themselves down and do some unlearning. So it's about us investing in the learning, whether it's LGBTQ, First Nations, anti-Black racism, anti-Indigenous, anti-Muslim, whatever it is, anti-Semitism, whatever it is, go invest in your learning. That's important. And that's where I want to leave that part. We have to invest in our learning, because we put the pressure on people and they feel tired. They don't want to talk all the time. You know, people, and I grew up, people call me all the time to say certain things. And I said, and you call on people, but just because they have black skin, or you call on a gay person because they said they're LGBTQ, but they're also in their learning. So they're also in their learning stage. So I think we all should invest in our learning, and many ways to learn. I watched 2 good movies the other day. LGBTQ movies, I learned so much from it. I learned from Priscilla. I learned from Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. I learned from Soldier's Boy. That's a movie that I would recommend everybody to watch. It's really powerful, about a trans woman. Soldier's Boy made me cry, and everybody I shared the video with and tell the DVD, DVD out to start. Go watch it. So let us invest in our learning. Yeah.
I love that, the learning and unlearning. There's a great company called Unlearn, and they used to they sponsored some of my TV shows, and it's just such a smart way to look at things, because you only know what you know. You don't know what you don't know. And when you talk, Dr. Campbell, about your mom thinking, oh my gosh, I'm not going to have grandbabies. Well, tell that to my 85-year-old mom when I came out at 18 and I got a 9-year-old, So it is about unlearning. There is that thing that people think that their parents are going to be like, oh, there's no wedding. Yeah, it's legal. Oh, there's no kids. Yeah, you can do that. So a lot of that unlearning is a societal pressure and media pressure. And we do have a question from a viewer that we're going to get to. That's going to be our first question, is about media influence. But David, so what are you looking for? Are you looking for a big pride flag, the new Chevron progressive pride flag? What are you looking for to signal that this is a space that you are welcome into? What are you looking for with maybe GSAs, or what are you creating so that folks can look and find what you're doing?
I think in creating those spaces, it really comes down to the small things. I think, I love a giant pride flag. I mean, this is my backpack for school. But I think it is a whole other discussion, but there's always the issue of performative allyship. And I think it's very important that, unfortunately, there's no textbook on, necessarily on, how to know what's performative and what's not. But I think it's the little things of, are individuals actually making the effort, as Dr. Campbell said, to educate themselves on the matters at hand. It's, are they coming to you just so that you can teach them, or are they coming to you because they learned something and they want to ask somebody with firsthand knowledge of, hey, is this actually the case? It's, did they go out and did they learn about were they a parent who learned about a transgender individual and then went to Liz and said, hey, you live this firsthand, like, is this actually what it's like? Or like, is this how every experience goes, or whatever the situation might be? I think it's creating that brave space that's, you can come and you can sit and you can listen, or you can come sit and share, or you can, you can stand outside the door and listen through a, just listen, and nobody has to know you're there. If that's what you want to do, that's your prerogative. And I think that those spaces are the most powerful, where they are open to everybody in every capacity, for people to just be who they want to be and engage however they want to engage, so long as, everybody's on the same page. I also think that there's, so many things like a gal, like Kids Help Phone, there's all of these amazing online resources that are in themselves a very, very welcoming environment for those who don't know where to go, and to, you know they're obviously not always going to be the perfect fit, and they're definitely not a one size fit all. Not everybody can just call Kids Help Phone and say, hey, here are my problems. But even knowing that those resources are there, and not encouraging others, but helping to make aware of these resources, which is also another very important thing for things like GSA, that as much as you could talk about it, there's always, as we started at the very beginning, that Jack they sent Trans Lifeline, LGBT Youth Line, Kids Help Phone. All those things are so important to remind people of, that they're always there to go to. You just need to be able to provide them with those resources.
And I think the takeaway for this is that you're not alone. So you're a parent of a transitioning child, you're not alone. You're a professor and you've got some folks coming to you, or you want to come out as a professor, you're not alone. You're a student and you're this age and you're not alone. There's nothing really new about what we're doing. Yes, the vernacular may change. Yes, non-binary may come into conversation significantly more. Yes, there is going to be more awareness around me checking my white privilege, just like it is with other folks feeling empowered to come out as their true authentic selves. So none of this is to create anything about feeling alone. It's about saying you're not alone. And there are so many places to go to PFLAG Canada, PFLAG Durham. If you are, and I'll get to your question about the media in just a second, because I'm very interested to hear the three answers about that, or whoever might want to take it. There are supports, resources, books. When you know better, you do better. And so if you want to know more, then learn it, read it. If your potential phobias are coming from your upbringing in religion, Netflix 2 days ago released Pray Away, which is of course loosely based on the Pray the Gay Away campaigns, programs, therapy by religious organizations for folks to become ex-gay. I watched it, I felt literally sick to my stomach. But if you're coming from a religious based and you're watching this today because you have your own phobias in and around this, and it might be stem from a religion, Pray Away is a really good resource for that, I find. And if you don't cry, there's something wrong with you. Okay, so we've completed pretty much every single question that I've mandated here. Now to our viewers, we want to thank you. Hang in, there's a few of you still here, we're almost done. So we did have a question for our panelists, and I won't read the person's name just so that we can encourage more folks to write questions in the next 14 minutes. So the question is, how do I handle people telling me it's the media and society that has put this in my child's brain? So we reiterated, my moderator said, are you asking how to respond to people who are telling you that your 2S LGBTQI child is that way only because of media and societal influence? And this parent is saying yes. So who wants to handle the misnomer or misconceptions that I guess the exposure of 2S LGBTQI folks may be leading to people being influenced into these letters of the acronym? Dr. Campbell, I'm going to go to you just quickly because your boots are really on the ground with working with these folks daily. And then Liz and David, if you want to chime in, that's great. I think this is a good question for you, Dr. Campbell.
Yeah. The media's influenced us, quote unquote, to do a million things. You don't see our kids doing it, right? You don't see your child, there's media about war and crime and violence and jumping off a roof and all kind of stuff is going on in the media. Why is it that your child is not doing all of those things? Because so the media doesn't influence the media does have influence because it can be used for knowledge and information, all that kind of stuff. This very video, it is, if according to where you upload it, will become a part of quote unquote media, right? But we have to understand that we have to learn how to think about what is it that we need and what we need from the media. And I think that is why it's funny. Talking about school, there's a course in school that we teach in elementary called media literacy. It's an actual subject. And we teach our kids, we teach our students how to see things on it and to understand that, oh, when they crack the egg and the egg just happened, that's just because they're speeding up the process. The egg just was not cooked in 1 second. And so the reality of the media is what we're teaching our children. It's the same way. The media is not influencing us to be gay. And then we have to use examples about, or to be LGBTQ, about how we find ourselves. Who are we? So if there was no media, what would we still be? And I like to use this example. I use the example there. There's so much media now that has exposed the kids to so many things. But many of us who are a little bit more mature, a little bit older, we never had those things. You know, our kids right now in Jamaica, for example, they have Netflix. We had one TV station growing up. And I'm aging myself, and I'm not as young as I look, but I'm not old either. But I'm telling you, we were very unexposed. I remember when I was about 22 or 23, I saw the movie Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. I thought I had contraband. I thought I had drugs in my possession. Okay? We had the video of drag queen on a video. It was like, whoa, look what we found. But when we watched it, it didn't influence us. It made us cry. It made us, I feel that way. That's how I feel. It only explained what was happening. I remember I bawled when I saw the movie, and I'm going to say, watch it again, Soldier's Girl. I bawled. But
you now own shares in that video, by the way. Now you're getting residuals, actually. You've said it so many times.
Oh.
Fantastic.
Oh, and I'm telling you, when I saw it, I felt, because I was, you know, in church, or just leaving church, quote unquote, at that time. And I knew all that bitterness. I've experienced all of that. It wasn't no media. I know what it is to be scared. As you said something, you said, David, terrified of who I was. I know what that felt like. It's just when I saw the movie, I go, okay, that was it.
So listen, so Dr. Campbell, you're saying that the media is showing you that you're not alone. For example, I would come home, Channel 7 at the time was City TV, and I would see Desert Hearts. And I was like, oh my, this is a blue movie. So there was that, like, oh my gosh, this is what that is. I didn't have a name for it.
Yeah.
But I think this parent's question is, I think we've clarified it through Jack, the moderator. Is this, I don't really want to say that there's a hidden, like the gay agenda.
Well, that is what people are saying.
Do some parents think, because of the unabashed openness of proud lives, is that pulling people in? Or is the exposure of non-binary? I'm going to be non-binary today. Is the fact that Deb Pierce is now she, they, I'm going to be she, they. So it's you know, I'll tell you, before you answer that.
The word is fine. The gay agenda word you just used, it's fine. Because people have been saying that. It's not a gay agenda. Like I say to you, it's a learning and a realization. Let me put it this way in closing. It's that we are now finding the proper word or words to express things we didn't understand before. For instance, non-binary is new. But people knew that, okay, let me give you something very negative. What are you? This is happening in school. What are you? Are you a boy or a girl? What is this? I don't know what this is. And people usually say, I'm just who I am. Because there were no other word. And I said this and I feel emotional because I remember this happening to people. Somebody I know. What is this? Is a boy or girl? What is it? Is a boy, girl? And it was negative. So what we are doing is finding proper words or helping those persons to properly explain. So now when you said non-binary or intersex, I would never forget someone cried explaining to me when they finally understood and read about intersex. They cried because they finally got a word to explain, because she said, I'm not a drag queen and I'm not a cross-dresser and I'm not this. I finally understood what I was, but the feeling was always there. So there's no agenda. It's just realizing and supporting us. And the marriage gay agenda, that's not a gay agenda. Many of us has always said, how are we going to live our happy ever after? We kept asking, what does my happy ever after looks like if we don't want to tell a lie and get married to a woman? What my happy after looks like? And all of a sudden, marriage is there and you realize there it is. I can have an happy ever after also. So there's no agenda. It's just helping us to explain some of the things that we didn't know how to explain it.
And I think the media, I'll tell you, the way I laid some groundwork, not very subtly, at the age of 18 was, hey, Mom, did you watch Oprah today? And she hadn't, but it was National Coming Out Day. And so these were my little groundworks, right? These my little, like, how do you feel about that subject? I know that now upon reflection and therapy. But it's interesting that that parent has that question, because I think folks in the age of 14 to 21, they're going to try on a lot of different hats, right? And so if there are those support systems and leading by a positive example through media, that maybe your child is gravitating towards, maybe identify with this, maybe identify with that. 14 to 21 is immensely formative and experimental. And so if they're sort of leaning towards that, my support to you, or my response to that, is not dissimilar to every message that you have received today, which is just being brave and leading by example. And if your child wants to try that hat on, it's not disrespectful to anybody in the 2S LGBTQI community if for a year or two they think they're bisexual, or they call themselves bisexual, or they know they're bisexual. That's okay, right? It looks like we have one more question. Liz or David, do you have anything that you want to add to that?
I do. I have both my angry gay answer and then an actual answer.
And then we've got 5 minutes with one more question to wrap it up. Go ahead, David.
My angry gay answer is I had heteronormativity shoved down my throat through the media for how many years of my life, and I turned out like this. That's my angry gay answer, which I've heard this one before, and that was my response is I've only ever seen straight couples until 3 or 4 years after I came out. I'm still gay. I think that the media has by definite means has an influence, easily seen when 13 Reasons Why, the Netflix show, came out, and there was a skyrocket in self-harm and suicide attempts in teenagers because they dramatized and they made it seem appealing to have these situations. The media still doesn't do that for the queer community. They don't we have movies like Love, Simon and whatnot that come out, but they still don't they don't make it seem glamorous most of the time to be gay. And you're seeing it more that now, we're getting things like that. But for the most part, we still don't even see that in the media. But I think it really comes down to, in terms of, people telling you, it's that, the media isn't what made you want to be straight. You just are straight. If you watch a movie about, if you watch Love, Simon, does that make you want to be gay? No, you're just watching a movie because it's a movie. You're not watching.
But it could help you if you feel like you're like, I'm not alone,
but
right?
Yeah, but you're not going to watch a movie about Judaism and say that's the reason I want to be Jewish. It's no, you either want if you're born it, then you are. If you might see that and you might say, wow, that's cool, I'm going to look into it, but that's not going to be the reason that you say
Right.
I'm Jewish right this moment.
It's not a sort of an impressionable moment where we're not giving folks, the autonomy to decide where they sit. And before I get to last thoughts from all of you in the last 3 minutes, I just want to say that one of our watchers said, I asked my father if I could give him information about being gay and convince him to be with a man. He said, no. I said, why? He said, because I'm not gay. And I responded with, exactly. I mean, That's pretty great. So 1 minute each. Liz, we'll start with you. Is there anything that you want to say wrapping up? And then I will, of course, thank you all.
Oh, it's so hard to summarize everything. And the panelists, thank you so much for everything that you said about bravery, about taking time, about saying to people, go do your own education, but also about, you know, I live this, we're working to create these affirming spaces. We're here, there are resources available for people, that there are resources available for parents, for children, adult children. Just really, thank you. It's been a privilege to be here.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you so much. Dr. Campbell, quickly, I have to say that word to you because I know that we have a lot to say, you and I. Go.
I just want to say, this is great. And for those who are listening, there's so much for us to learn. But learning is also fun. I want to point that out. It's fun because you're discovering. I've been a teacher for 25 years and I love teaching because it's supposed to be a discovery, not a punishment. And so I want you to engage in your learning and your unlearning and be patient with yourself, be patient with others, and lead with love. If you're confused about something, lead with love. Lead with love. Lead with love. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Campbell, and thank you for letting me be cheeky with how much you and I really have a lot to say. David, you've got a minute.
All right. I just want to say, first of all, thank you to Dr. Campbell and Liz. You both spoke absolutely amazingly. Thank you, Deb and Agal, for putting this on. And I just want to thank everybody who came out and attended. I think the first step to the first step to educating is taking the first step. And I don't know for people here if this is their first step, but whether it is or it's not, every step forward is a good step. And just lead with love. I like that. I really love that, actually. Lead with love, be open, and yeah.
I think that's my next tattoo, honestly, lead with love. It was going to be a great white shark. Now I think it's lead with love. We have one of our attendees saying media doesn't make people want to be something they aren't, but it may help them connect with things they're already thinking or feeling about themselves. I did notice they'll remain nameless, but one of the parents on the parent council says, thank you for this. So that was great. And Jack wants me to share with the folks that are watching that we will put a link to sign up for tonight's 7 p.m. panel, very similar. We're going to have a guidance counselor, a member of the TDSB, and an educator with U of T going for her PhD. So we're going to be talking about this on a level that isn't as much parents, but more within curriculum and guidance. And you can sign up for that. We have these panels exactly the same with our moderator, Paula Alphonse, and they're going to be completely in French next Thursday, August 12th, 12 p.m. and 7 p.m. You can sign up and register again, it's free. Liz, I remember you saying something about Quebec and Montreal, so maybe there's some folks that might be interested in that. Thank you very much. I think if we all unmute ourselves, I think on the count of 3, we should all say, lead with love. Are we ready? 1, 2, 3.
Lead with love.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. That's Jack, our moderator. Thank you very much for working so hard behind the scenes. Thanks to everybody for attending today. Panelists, stick around. Attendees, you're free to go. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Deb Pierce with the GAL. Thank you very much.